Hi guys, welcome back to Global Shutter Productions. Today we're going to be looking at a cheap black and white film from the Czech company Foma called Fomapan 100. Now obviously this is an ISO 100 film and it's very cheap. And yes, we bought 10 of these rolls back when we were starting our Lost Place photography and we were just looking for some cheap film to get going. And we're going to look at this film today and our experience with it. Now just a short disclaimer at the beginning as well. This is not a scientific test. Everything that we're going to be sharing with you is our personal thoughts, so take everything with a grain of salt. Now, like I said, we bought this film because of its price. It's very cheap and affordable, and you do realize that when you start using it. For instance, the package does look fine, but the actual wrapping of the film is this white, minimalistic package, you could say. And also when you get your film developed, you can see that it's an affordable film because the lettering and the numbers of the shots are actually, they look like they've been done on an old school label maker, you know, the ones you actually like press into. And that's what they look like. And also we have had a couple of times that the numbering or the name actually, you know, goes into the image, which is something that is, you know, fatal basically. But now we're going to speak about the image quality, and to do so we're going to be talking about some examples as well that we've got on the monitor right here. Now to start off, I can only say that it is a very unique look, you could say. I mean, it is ISO 100, so it's fairly low ISO. And for that, you are getting a fair amount of grain and also very, well, not very high contrast, but a fair amount of contrast. And we feel like the dynamic range is not as high as on other films because of that contrast. Something that we are kind of uncertain about is, but we feel like it's not as sharp as the other films. It's not as detailed with high resolution scans that we've done. But that's something, you know, it's kind of, I think it's more of a feeling than something factual. But it does feel a little bit more soft, I guess you could say. Okay guys, we're now going to look at some images. Now, we obviously took all these photos on Fomapan 100 and we digitized them with a digital camera as well as the lomography digitizer. And we converted them with Negative Lab Pro. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, obviously, we edited all these images to our preference. So like we said, it's not a scientific review, but here we go. So this is the first image of a lost place. It's a gun range, and this is the pub, I guess, of the gun range. And yes, when you look at this image, you can see that it is fairly contrasty. Like for instance, this clock is, you can't really see that it even is a clock. It's just a white spot on this image because the contrast is really high. And for an ISO 100 film, it is very contrasty. So if you compare it to an Ilford FP4+, you will see that it is more contrasty and the grain is more visible at least. Now it isn't really grainy, it's a pretty clean image all in all, but I find that the Ilford is just a little bit more of a clean image all in all. But like I said, the grain isn't really anything bad. Now this image really works with this film, we feel like, because something about, I don't know if it was the lighting or whatever, but the contrast really works. It is, you know, the light is shining through in this back door, which is a typical analog look, obviously, and we really like that. But also the door up front here is still perfectly visible, and the contrast on that is really lovely. You have some nice detail in the highlights, but also in the shadows, which is really great. And with this photo, sorry, we thought this film really worked quite well. Now here's an image of a house, and basically when you look at this image, you will see that it isn't quite as sharp as the other films, but like I said, that is also kind of a minimal thing. So yes. Now just to look at some other images, you've got this image, and like I said, again, it's fairly contrasty. Got another image right here of me using a digital camera. So this film isn't super contrasty, but it is fairly contrasty. So on this image, you can see that in the dark regions, like this black cloth on my jacket, and also the camera itself, the grip, we're losing details there because the contrast is simply too high. And that's just something that you've got to keep in mind when using this film. Same as here, you know, we wanted to have a fairly contrasty image, but we are losing details down here and on the tire itself. So that's just something you keep in mind. But oh yeah, here's another shot I want to show you guys. Oops. Anyway, this is a shot of a window inside a boat cabin or ferry cabin. And yeah, again, this is something where we feel like the contrast works. So to sum this whole thing up, we think that this Fomapan is perfectly suited for A, fairly contrasty shots, and also shots that aren't maybe as important. So like daily shooting, stuff where you're not sure if you are going to get great images, stuff where you don't want to waste a lot of money on expensive film. Fomapan 100 is the way to go, we feel like, if you're willing to, cheap out on film. But if you are going to create work that you really care about, it's maybe worthwhile using another film. So like FP4 or Tri-X or something like that, that, obviously all have their own look to it. But I guess we definitely recommend you go ahead and try out this film because it is very fun to work with. And it does have a very unique look that is kind of between this super contrasty image and a very low contrast image. So we find that to be quite cool. And also something we just do is we usually take Fomapan with us when we go out shooting black and white because it's cheap and we don't have that much money. And then, we also have some other films with us that are, do have other characteristics. And then on set, we can decide whether we want to actually use Foma or the other stuff. So we have a choice basically. And that's, I guess, the way to go. But as a student film and just a cheap film, we think it really holds up and is a really cool film for the price. Okay guys, we hope you really liked our review of this cheap budget black and white film, and maybe we inspired you to go out and actually buy this and shoot it. And please do leave comments below if you've had any experience with this film, or maybe any other products of the Foma company. And yeah, if you liked the video, please do leave a like up and consider subscribing to get notified when we produce content in the future.